Hello, sports fan. This is Stephen Hill with Sports Choice Plus, and I'm bringing you a special breakdown of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time in the NFL. Now, I did one of these lists a couple of years ago, and since then, a lot of things have changed in the NFL. You look at quarterbacks changing teams. Their rankings can change based off their performance and things that they've done to lift their team or drop their team. So I'm going to hop right into it without further ado. And always, make sure you share the videos before I get right into it. Make sure you subscribe. And then we can debate with you each and every week on any topic you want to. So coming in at number 10, Brett Favre. When I look at what Brett Favre has done over his illustrious career, from Atlanta Falcons not really getting him into the right mode that he need to, and him not taking football as serious as he need to, and him then going to the Packers, you look at his historic time with not only the Jets and also the Vikings. Brett Favre played the game at a different kind of pace. He was a country kid. What he brought to those teams was a hell of an arm. You look at what he did on the field and some of the players he made better around him. Brett Favre was dynamic in everything that he did almost to a certain point. Even look at the classic games when he lost his father against the Oakland Raiders, and just how a lot of things that Brett Favre did, even though he was a gunslinger, he made a lot of mistakes, but he also won a lot of football games. You look at that Super Bowl victory that he has under his belt. Just coming in at number 10, he's I would say in the top 10 realm, and he's done a lot of things for the game of football. Almost 20 years in football in the NFL ranks. And you look at just overall how many teams that Packers team win more because he was simply on that team. He threw a lot of interceptions, but he also threw a lot of touchdowns when he retired. The NFL lost a great guy. But coming in at number 10, I look at Brett Favre. Coming in at number 9, Jim Kelly. I think this is one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time. Because he did not win a Super Bowl with the Buffalo Bills, I don't think he gets his just due. And when I looked at his numbers and look at, so many different things, he went to 4 different Super Bowls. Yes, he didn't win those Super Bowls, but he was the reason that Buffalo Bills are on the map. I know that O.J. Simpson had his time there, but the more compelling argument is, if you put any other quarterback on that Bills team, would they have been able to get to the Super Bowl? I probably don't think so. When I look at how strong of an arm he had, a big guy, tough guy, bruiser, Jim Kelly was a warrior. And, he doesn't get his just due. I think he's underrated to a certain extent. And then when you look at his overall breakdown, when he retired, at the time of retirement, his numbers were just astronomical. Now, some of the quarterbacks now are blast past those numbers because it's a passing league at this point, and almost everybody passes the ball 30 to 40 times a game. Coming in at number 8, you have Aaron Rodgers. Even though he's still actively playing, we take for granted a lot of the things that we see with Aaron Rodgers because we don't get to see his games always on television. Sometimes he plays on out-of-market games. You look at his touchdown to interception ratio. You look at his touchdowns per year. You look at when he is healthy, what does he bring to the Green Bay Packers? He gives them almost every single chance to win the football game, and he's Hail Mary. Whenever you throw that Hail Mary and he's around, chances are somebody's going to come down with the Green Bay Packers uniform and catch it on the Packers. You look at just what he brought to the Packers before, and then you look at with their new coach now, they had a pretty good year, even though it wasn't just Aaron Rodgers, but you saw him leading the charge with so many different things with that Green Bay Packers team. So that was definitely something I saw. Next up at number 7, you're looking at Mr. Johnny Unitas. When you look at Johnny Unitas, he led the league, and this is an incredible stat because when I saw it, it just jumped off the page to me. He led the league in passing touchdowns for 4 straight years. That's very hard to do. Considering the time in when he played football, he was Mr. Colt. You look at just everything he did as far as his leadership. They won't make quarterbacks like Johnny U anymore. I wasn't alive or around, but when I watched the videos, when I watched the old archives of those football games, of the announcers that gush over him and what he's done, he was able to not only put the Colts franchise on his back, but also build a legacy that even today, he gets the respect of his peers that played then, and then historians. When you hear Bill Belichick talk about just how good of a quarterback he was, and you hear Tom Brady break it down on NFL 100 and those things, you're seeing the numbers that match that. But Johnny U was definitely a hell of a quarterback. Coming in at number 6, I have Mr. Drew Brees. He recently became the all-time leader in NFL passing yards. You look at him going back and forth possibly with Tom Brady this year coming up, because Tom Brady's just around the corner from him as far as yards. But you look at what Drew Brees was able to do to transform that New Orleans Saints franchise into a winner. You look at when they were literally, before he came in San Diego, people thought his career was over. He'll never throw the ball really again. He's a short stature quarterback, but he plays a very big game. You're looking at almost 5,000 yards almost every season since he's been in the league when he's been with the Saints. You look at he's been able to rewrite the storybook. He was able to win a Super Bowl against the Indianapolis Colts, and it's just so many different things. When I look at how his breakdown was, what he was able to do. So it's vital to everything when you're looking at quarterback play, when you're looking at efficiency, when you look at he gets the ball out of his hands very quickly. He makes his teammates better. And you look at the amazing job he's able to do with just Michael Thomas as a wide receiver. Not a lot of help on the other parts, but he's making the Saints relevant each and every year. Next up, number 5, as we all know, Otto Graham. When you look at just what he did with the Browns, he will probably never get his true respect because back then he was the do-it-all essential quarterback. He did it with his legs. He did it with his arms. He did it almost every single way possible. And the Browns back then, yeah, they got a credit for winning back then, but you probably won't see another quarterback of his kind because he was the do-it-all guy. It didn't matter. He kicked kicks, punts. It doesn't matter. He sold tickets, kissed babies. He did a little bit of everything to make the Browns relevant back in the day. And I think that he is one of those guys that if you don't know who he is, go look him up on YouTube. Go see some of his games that he played in black and white. The guy was a monster. He was a playmaker at quarterback and did so many different things well for the Cleveland Browns. Coming up at number 4, I know a lot of people are going to debate this, but I love this guy at quarterback, Dan Marino. Even though he did not win a Super Bowl for the Miami Dolphins, he was one of the best pure passers of all time. You look at just everything he was able to accomplish, and you look at just the standpoint of moving the football. Even when he didn't have Jimmy Johnson on his team before then, you look at how he was able to make those Dolphins teams better and throwing the football all around the field, making sure those offenses were high-powered. He didn't have a high tolerance of defense or anything like that was able to help him out. But when you look at the kid, when he came out of Pittsburgh, you look at the standard he was able to set Miami Dolphins. There's never been a really quarterback after that to even measure up to Dan Marino in any way, shape, or form. When you look at just the way he threw the ball, the way it came off his hands, the wide receivers caught it, running backs caught it. It was just a different monster when it came to Dan Marino. And I know people are going to say, oh, he doesn't have a Super Bowl. He doesn't have a Super Bowl. A lot of good quarterbacks that played in the NFL for a long time didn't have one. Yeah, he went to a Super Bowl and lost one, but Dan Marino is the reason why the Miami Dolphins are on the map in the first place. You look at so many different teams that they've had that have been pretty good. They've never measured up to the Miami Dolphins that Dan Marino were on there. And when he got Jimmy Johnson down there in South Florida, you thought they were going to win a Super Bowl. But, things happened. He got older, had a couple injuries. But when he was in his prime, when he was in his youth, Dan Marino was a hell of a quarterback. And it's hard to argue against that. Coming in at number 3, you got the Sheriff, Mr. Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning reinvented himself, even though his Denver Broncos team carried him to a Super Bowl. When he was in Indianapolis, he was one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You look at just what he was able to do with Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James. They did so many different things with those big teams. And when you're breaking down everything, and he's going to have a statue one day, and it's going to be in Indianapolis in front, and it's just going to be everything Peyton. That team should be renamed Peyton Manning. Because of just how he was able to take that dome, inside that dome, and they used that advantage, and he put so much pressure on the defense to make every decision right at the line of scrimmage, and it was Omaha. He was doing different things to make the defense feel inferior, and you can literally in that 2000, that 90, 2000 range, and in the latter half of 2010, there was no better quarterback besides Peyton Manning. When you look at him and just who he went up against, Tom Brady, his counterpart, it was almost 50-50. And you're looking at how many teams of those Colts teams, if you didn't have Peyton Manning, would probably not even win 5 games. When you look at his injury and what he suffered in those years before Andrew Luck, what did they do? They completely fell off the map. Because Peyton Manning was that gunslinger. He was that sheriff. He demanded respect. He made his teammates better. Just listening to literally Edgerrin James and how he talked about how Peyton Manning, as long as you had him on your team, you was always in a football game. That sheriff leadership, that command of the pocket, those things. He stepped up in the pocket and played big almost every single game in his career. He does have a couple of Super Bowls to show for it, and he is a true MVP. You look at his regular season stats and what he was able to accomplish. When he retired, he had a hell of a resume. So Those are some of the things that why Peyton Manning came in at number 3. Coming in number 2, Mr. Joe Montana. You look at Mr. Joe Cool, the San Francisco 49er kid, coming out of Notre Dame, was highly regarded by a lot of people. You look at just what he was able to do with Jerry Rice and company. You look at just what they did to build a legacy for the San Francisco 49ers. I know Steve Young came behind and then won a little something after he left. But when you look at just what Joe Montana was able to do, he was perfect in the Super Bowl. He literally put the San Francisco 49ers on his back and dared anybody to come against him. He literally was maybe the poster child for the West Coast offense. You look at what Bill Walsh was able to do. He benefited so much, but he played that offense to the T. He played it so well, and he led the 49ers with so many different superstars on those teams back in the day. And I think that, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a hell of a Hall of Famer. You look at what he's done overall, the life of football. I know he went to Kansas City for a little bit, but when you look at the San Francisco 49ers, when you look at their rich legacy of football history, that is the guy. And you look at so many different people that have come through that organization, nobody's lived up to Joe Montana. And you look at his Super Bowl record, it's pristine. You listen to Jerry Rice talk about him, the guy set record after record after record. And he was throwing strikes in the process of doing it. So that's why Joe Montana is at number 2. And number 1, the GOAT, Tom Brady. Tom Brady has done so many different things. He's broken so many barriers. Coming in through New England, you look just at exactly what he was able to accomplish. The guy did what he did with Belichick. Now he's moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm excited to see what possibly could happen moving forward. And I think overall, you're going to see that Tom Brady does a little something by himself away from Belichick. You look at that lineup he has down there in Tampa, and he could possibly break a couple of records. He could become the first quarterback to go to the Super Bowl in the host city. I think that, the MVPs, the Super Bowls by itself, it speaks for itself. He's able to do so many things with Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Gronk, Aaron Hernandez, Deion Branch, Julian Edelman. He's had so many different playmakers. He's done it with weapons. He's done it without the weapons. There's so many different things he's done. So all things considered, this is my top 10 list. Let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to check us out. Share the YouTube channel page, Sports Choice Plus, so we can debate with you each and every week. And I'm Stephen Hill. Feel free to come back and debate with me, and see you next time.